Hey everyone, quickly wanted to use this video to go through the project that Veronica and me are running this cycle, which is about adding contract terms and grace periods to plans or subscriptions in general. And I thought, since we've been practicing ShapeUp for quite some time now, and I'm trying to be a little bit disciplined about following the ShapeUp processes for every project with the components that work, I'd like to quickly go through the first few days of the projects that we had so far. So after the new cycle announcement post on Monday, I didn't do anything, but Veronica already started this project in Basecamp. I think she pulled in the shape that Jan and me originally prepared for this project, which lists all the things and discussions about how we got to this feature, which was originally pitched on February 6th. And then Veronica posted an introduction post with a lot of questions. Some of the questions Jan and me already covered a little bit in this shape, but maybe didn't describe enough, and some questions were new. So that's cool. But also what I noticed is that if we write a post such as this with a lot of bullet points and questions, the formatting kind of gets lost somehow, and it would also be really difficult to reply in a structured way. So what I suggested is actually to make a discussions topic list where I separated out each individual question or group of questions from Veronica's original post, and I just listed them as individual questions. And I looped in Veronica and or Jan on these, and now we had a great discussion about these questions in the comment thread. And I think within 1 day or 1.5 days of async work, we were able to mark these questions as completed, because the conclusion was reached to what is the development and design structure we will follow initially, and might change in the future, but at least we have an initial conclusion together to continue this project. You'll also notice that there's quite a bunch of to-do lists already in here, and what I've basically done, I've split up the shape into certain scopes for this project. So per scope we can see the progress. So both design and development to-dos are included here. Might even add documentation or other kind of to-dos in here. And it's good to separate those to-dos out per scope instead of per role, because then you can really check off one big part of a project instead of having everything open all the time and never finishing something. And the goal of running a ShapeUp project is to not complete everything in the fourth week of the cycle, because then you will always run into problems or unforeseen things and not ship on time. But in essence, try to finish as much of first maybe 1 or 2 scopes, the core scopes of the project at first, and then continue with the rest of them. So per scope, there's a few to-dos that we can already assume that we need to do, and while we continue with the project, we will be adding more to-dos and checking them off. So that's a good thing. So just to go through the topics of this project. In general, we want to add minimum contract terms and a grace period to subscriptions, which means that when someone signs up for a subscription, and in this case we focus first on plan-based subscriptions, someone cannot cancel until the contract term is fulfilled, with the exception that we add a grace period feature, so that, for example, the first 14 days you can still cancel the subscription and get a refund. So that's the general idea of the feature, and there's more details in the shape. So here's a bit of the samples of the scopes that I've defined. So in this project, we have a few fundamentals around adding certain stuff to our models and to our API to actually have contract terms. And these really don't have any UI. So this is more like making sure that the fundamental mechanics of the new contract term system works. So that's why probably this will not get any design to-dos. And is more preparing the infrastructure for this feature. And then we go ahead to some scopes here. So there's one, the plan settings. If you create a plan or manage your plan and go monthly, you need to specify contract terms and the grace period. So all the to-dos around that topic and around that 1 or 2 screens will be entered here. And this is design, but it's also adding fields to the model, which I will be doing. And we might be adding more detailed to-dos here as we go with the project. Then there's the cancellation flow in the self-service center, where we already know a few things, like we want to prevent people from canceling. So we disable or hide the cancellation button if the contract terms are not over yet, or we implement some alternative that someone is able to cancel, but like do a soft cancellation so that they indicate they cancel, but the cancellation is actually applied at the end of the contract term. So we need some UI for that. We want to design showing the duration of, hey, when did you start your contract? Where are you now, and how many months or how much time do you still have left? And then there's an implementation to do to actually make sure that the GraphQL API exposes those details so that we can actually hook them up in the user interface. So that's the self-service center part. And the good thing about this is that we can make choices. So obviously the fundamentals are required for this project. Configuring the plan settings is also required for this project. Signing up for a committed plan is also required. But we can think about perhaps not shipping the self-service center if we run out of time. And it's easy that if you complete these two parts of the feature, we're already like 50% there, and we could already ship the feature and make it usable and pull the whole self-service center thing out if that would be needed. That could be a choice we can make by splitting up the scopes like this in the project. Well, next sample, we obviously have our own CRM in our Firmhouse portal, which should also expose the cancellation feature. And here, this still needs some to-dos, so that's still in progress, and we don't want to prepare the whole project up front. But there's one design to-do in here, which is making sure that if a customer care representative cancels the subscription while someone is still in their contract terms, we at least show some kind of message. Hey, are you sure? Because this customer is not eligible for cancellation yet. So that's a design thing, and obviously we'll be adding more implementation to-dos here and maybe other design to-dos as well to make sure that this like mini use case is covered. I would say this is more important than the self-service center part, so I'm moving it up at this point here. Showing and updating a subscriptions plan and duration terms, and I should add here in the portal. So obviously we have the cancellation flow and we have the sign-up flow, but in our CRM, it should also be clear which plans a subscription is subscribed to, how long they still have in their contract terms, when does it end, and even updating the contract terms. So there are all kinds of design and implementation to-dos in here that are relate to the actual subscription details page and perform some actions in there. So that's a little bit of a separation of all the scopes for this project that we want to have shipped, or ideally have shipped at the end of the cycle. And it will also be really easy to like pull out a big part, one scope that is perhaps not that essential right now, to still be able to ship the core parts of the project. And each to-do list will have all kinds of roles in here. It's imaginable that we can use subgroups for like development and design, but so far it shouldn't be necessary. Then there's one last thing that I want to round off with, which is the inbox. And it's always a good thing that if you are designing or developing on something and you're like, okay, I'm working on this now, but I also see something here that I need to touch later. Either refactor, or you realize, oh shit, this needs another model, but I'm working on this model now, so I'm not going to dig the rabbit hole for myself now. You can just put the to-do in the inbox if you don't want to waste like brain cycles on finding the right scope. And then once a day or whenever you want to, you can like review the inbox and move to-dos to the right scope, or realize, hey, this is more like one miscellaneous to-do that doesn't really fit a scope, but it is something that needs to be done. And then you can basically leave it here, or even create some kind of other scope or miscellaneous list. So I'm really excited. Oh, maybe one last thing is the hill chart. I've chosen to put all the actual like feature scopes on the hill chart, so that we can start moving these like circles depending on how confident we are that we are still figuring things out or actually making it happen. So a bunch of these lists actually already have a bunch of to-dos that are quite clear and that we can now already see as, okay, this is completing the feature. And if that's the case, you would move that bubble to the middle, because then you've kind of listed, or just before, because maybe you're not really prepared yet in the first week. But then you can at least indicate, hey, we're pretty much done figuring out this scope of this project, and then it's just down to the execution. So as you chunk off to-dos, merge in PRs, make designs, you will be moving this thing to the end. And it should be that all scopes should be near the end or at the end of the cycle, because if they're not, it means something is still open, and then you can like immediately see, hey, which scopes did we fully complete at the end of the cycle and which scopes still have open points. So that's really cool that you can instantly see how far were we in this project at the end of the cycle. Some of the things might still have open to-dos, other things are fully completed. And hopefully then with your own intelligence or with your own wit, you made some right and proper choices to at least ship all the core things before the end of the cycle and leave optional things for later. So that's that. Let's get this working, and I hope this could help you organize your own project.